Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about some of the issues and some of the wider issues revolving around how gentile, Western world gentile and social constructs, society generally, is and has been defined primarily by Jewish observers. And if we look at everything from Hollywood, the movies and the TV shows, if you look at pretty much every days of our lives onwards, from the 1950s, Beverly Hills 90210, the list just goes on, of the soap operas and also some of the comedies, the Gilligan's Island and all that sort of thing. They've pretty much all, with a couple of exceptions, they've pretty much all been written, produced, directed by Jews. Now, this is, you sort of need to understand all these people they've gone to Jewish schools, they've learned about the Holocaust ad nauseum, they've all got endless amounts of Holocaust books in there. The Jewish schools teach them that Gentiles have been cruel, wicked, and oppressive to Jews since thousands of years. Jews are blameless victims being put upon and set upon by these evil Gentiles. Now the Jews choose to serve exist among Gentiles and to have businesses in Gentile sort of areas and countries and nations, and provide goods and services, work in Gentile establishments, that sort of thing. So they're choosing to do that, and there's no wealth in living in some impoverished. There's no wealth for the Jews to go into the middle of Africa or something. They have to go where the wealth is and extract what they can. So really, when we look at all these soap operas, the comedies, you name it, Gentile life and existence is being presented to us by activist outsider Jews that are looking in. Many of them quite angry about not being, not being accepted as equals in the Gentile society. But when Jews want to keep their own existence, their own customs and habits, but yet perceive everyone else as being bad to them because they're different, and it's quite a stretch to accept that position of being victimized and oppressed and so on. But nonetheless, let's just accept that for the moment. They've been taught that at school, so there's that rankling in the back of their mind that they're tolerating Gentiles only because that's where the money is. So when they look at as outsiders, quite resentful outsiders, they're still bristling with the discontent of an outsider looking in. I'm going to cling to my Jewishness like a life raft, but it's their fault for not accepting me as one of them. And again, that's a bit of a stretch. But look, there are always exceptions to that, and there are many with the Jewish people. It doesn't mean they're all on the same page. Far from it. As I've often said in many other videos, a number of Jews that I've known have told me, when you have two Jews, you have three opinions. So, but nonetheless, the people that certainly are producing and writing these shows, whether it be the soap operas, it's difficult to conceal they're looking as outsiders with a completely different worldview. This is their view of what Gentile society is like, and then they put it on the screen with all the petty drama and petty carry on that the family sniping and that sort of thing that is typical in Jewish households, and sort of projected, if you like, onto the Gentile society. But it's their take and understanding of what the Gentile society is, its values, its mores, its reasons for existence, its raison d'etre, the whole thing. That's the Jewish take on it, and yet that's the dominant paradigm that we see on television and in many of the movies. Now, if we look at how that seeped into, say, things like the critical race theory and that sort of stuff, and the feminism and the ideology around that, the Marxism and all that sort of stuff, it is very much outsider Jews resenting that they're not part of the inside crowd and they're not permitted to be. I mean, some do, but they see themselves as outsiders that are ever in danger of being expelled or put upon, and so on. Now, they imagine, therefore, a world where that could never happen to them, where those sort of things will never happen to them again. Like, in Nazi Germany, initially the Nazi government just wanted the Jews to leave. And there's roughly 400,000 Jews in Germany at the time. And the German government spent a lot of money helping the Jews get interviews at foreign embassies, to apply for visas to foreign countries. They were given interpreters. They were given, train fares to go from an area of Germany that maybe didn't have, like an American embassy or something, to travel to those. So there was a lot of resources put in by the Nazi government to help Jews just leave Germany, and around half of them did. The least skilled, and bear in mind this was the time of the worldwide depression, so it was difficult for anybody to go around travelling and emigrate at the time. So it wasn't unique to Jews; it was just difficult for anybody back then, due primarily to the depression. But when the people, all the people in the 200,000 Jews that had been rejected from all sorts of different places, then they were the ones left behind. And as we know from history, they didn't do so well. Some of them tried to sort of go on boats and just appear on New York Harbour and say, "Let us in," but they were turned away. Now, that sort of thing has again, it sticks with the Jews even today, very much so, in fact. So they see, what sort of world can we create where that can never happen to us again? Screw everyone else, but what world can we create where that'll never happen again? A world where any people, anywhere at any time, can move anywhere at any time they choose, for any reason or no reason. And if we've got a world like that, then where anybody can move anywhere, where it's absolute equality, gay, lesbian, black, you name it, upside down Eskimo, it doesn't matter. Everyone's equal, and in the equity sense, and therefore we can always sort of hide in the crowd, and wherever the crowd goes, we can go, and we won't be singled out because we protect all them. We've argued stringently for their rights. If they have rights, we have rights to go anywhere and to do this and to do that. And so that's very much the sort of structure. The law shouldn't exist as facts and this sort of thing. It should exist as ideology. And they've been very successful, in changing laws and arguing. You look at any activist movement, whether it be the feminism or gay, lesbian, or anything at all, you'll find Jews at the apex. Look at all the teachers' unions activists, nearly all Jews, and so on. So, I'm not saying it's either good or bad, but rather people who are very resentful at being on the outside are the ones who are framing what society is, and that it's evil, it's bad, it's this, it's that, and the changes needed to create a better society, a better world. I mean, the absolute crushing of all straight, white, Christian, gentile males. And if we do that, then the world that we envision, this paradise, which is kind of quasi-Marxist sort of thing, then that's going to come into being, and that in turn will then protect us. Now, I guess that sort of paradigm is I think behind a lot of what we see in the globalization scam today. But on a sort of a separate note, I was reading a history, out of all things, of a British engineering outfit who were building or extending and building seaport facilities at one of the Black Sea ports in Romania in the 1870s and 1880s. And this has been quite a small, like a fishing port, but because it was deep water in parts, and because heavier steamships were around, there was an opportunity to transport I don't know whether it was from that part of the world at the time. I think it might have been timber or lumber or something. But so it was decided to build substantial port facilities and extend areas for like warehousing and things like that, and turn it into quite a commercial hub. And the chief of the engineering division there kept a diary. He commented. He said, he despaired that the local people in Romania weren't very enterprising, and they weren't supplying or going out of their way to supply the services that were needed. Would have been helpful not only to them but to the locals. And so he despaired of their what he perceived as their laziness, and then he noticed how many Jews from Ukraine particularly came into the area and set up shop, and he was this engineer, this British engineer, was outraged. He didn't do anything because it wasn't his place to do it, but he observed, outraged how in his perception the Jews, I don't, took money from the locals and used the locals in a shabby manner, exploited them. Paid them shit money and agreed to pay, but then didn't come payday, and went engaged in all sorts of antics and tricks that to increase their profits at the expense of the well-being of the locals. And this guy didn't like that. He thought it was quite unfair, and so when some of the Jews got driven out of town, then he wasn't surprised. For given their levels of as he perceived it, exploitation. So he talked about this and about how, but he argued both sides. He said, well, look, the locals won't do the work, they won't do the heavy lifting, they won't do they won't supply the goods and services that are needed. So the Jews will come in and they will, and they perform a very useful function. The fact that they screw the locals over is sort of a byproduct of their being here. But he concedes that they're enterprising and hardworking and doing well for themselves as a result of it. And so he was looking at that and comparing, saying, well, that sort of energy and activity and enterprise is needed, but it comes at a certain social cost. And a part of that was they want to reorganise the society to entrench their privilege and screw the locals. And so and again, this is in the 1880s, for goodness sake, and he was writing about it as an observer. He wasn't a player in that game, but as an observer. And it's interesting to read those observations, and sometimes as he went around and saw the exploitation of the locals, he perceived that those Jews from Ukraine were acting with, in his perception again, with considerable malice, and it clearly sort of stuck in his craw in the fair play sense. But he did mention that when things turned against them, that they were the first to scream that they were being hard done by, and where's the fairness, and where's our rights? But we're rather casual and careless about those considerations when the shoe's on the other foot. So, but anyway, those were his things. So that's a little sort of story there to add on to the end of the other. But I'll be looking forward to seeing your comments. Is our society being defined and framed by outsiders, angry and in some cases bitter outsiders, who, although they're making a lot of money and doing well out of it, they still have that fear of the outsider, that they'll be turned on or cast out, and want to change the world to suit them, so that in their cognizance will never happen again. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.